Hey, I'm Quincy and I'm a radio personality, but just like you, I'm always wanting to make better health choices for myself and of course for my family. Now that's why I've teamed up with my friend Dr. Dean Tyndall and the fine folks of New Life Naturopathic, the creators of new-lifeweightloss.com, to bring you a podcast focused on giving you the information you need to make the best health decisions for you and your family. Now, that's going to be without sway from what mainstream medicine has become. Now, this podcast, Pursuit of New Life, we're going to release one each Friday. And we're going to focus on debunking the mainstream medicine myths now associated with naturopathic, holistic medicine, while giving you clear insight into ways you can make your health a lifestyle and not a jump from fad diet to fad diet. Experts in the fields of biochemistry, chiropractic, physiology, women's health, and much more will weigh in on a range of topics, all designed to open your eyes, expand your knowledge, and bring you to new life. Now be sure to subscribe to Pursuit of New Life on all the podcast platforms, and also follow us on YouTube at newlifenaturopathic.com, and be joining us every Friday for Pursuit of New Life.
Welcome back for another edition of Pursuit of New Life. We're so glad that you've joined us. Would you please subscribe here on your favorite podcast platform, and that would be Pursuit of New Life, of course. And then on YouTube, you can subscribe and share with your friends, New Life Naturopathic. That's where you can get all the great information from Dr. Tyndall, Dr. Stuber, and the team at New Life Naturopathic. We've had some great episodes recently, and we are going to talk about preventative health today. And of all things, we are going to have it start talking by pointing out something from Benjamin Franklin. How about that, Dr. Tyndall?
All right.
So what's the quote, Dr. Tyndall, from Benjamin Franklin that'll get us started today?
An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure.
Ooh, yes.
Hey.
Preach it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what we're going to kind of talk about today is prevention and why it's so important. Most people don't do it, especially when they do it with everything else. You do it with your house, you do it with your car, you do it with pretty much all your invaluable stuff, but you don't deal with your most valuable thing, which is your health.
Mm-hmm.
Julie and I've been doing chiropractic care for about 30 years. And one of the things that we try to get patients on is get on maintenance care once a month, get adjusted, keep yourself healthy. Of course, patients who do it love it because, like, man, I love feeling good. I like being able to move and do the things and stuff like that. So when I'm trying to talk to people, one of the things I tell them, I said, truck drivers or farmers or whatever. I'm like, so what's the most important part of your vehicle? And they're like, well, my engine or this or that. And I said, no, it's the operator. The operator isn't healthy. The car, it doesn't matter how good the car shape is. If you can't get in and drive it and do the work, then your vehicle and what you have is worthless. And I said, and also with your vehicle, I said, you spend the time, the money, the energy to maintain it. Why do you do that? Why do you do that? And they're like, why do I pay $40 or now it's $70 to get my oil changed? Well, because I don't want to pay for a $10,000 engine.
Right.
People need to start thinking about that in that mind. And we try to get people to think of that mindset when it comes to their health.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, my big turnaround for me in my life was back in 1996 when I was in a bad car crash. I broke my neck and tore up my hand. And from that, I ended up gaining a bunch of weight because I wasn't, it's been for prior podcast shows, my activity was hiking, biking, kayaking, being outside and being active. And I couldn't do that. I ate at KFC, McDonald's, donuts, depressed, ate that crap. And I get up myself 285 pounds, very unhealthy, very miserable. And, I knew I was going downhill quick. And thank goodness my friends, started getting me to go to some standard process classes and learn about what actual health and nutrition is. And then that's what kind of got me onto this thing. And so, since 1996, I haven't had a drug, and not even aspirin.
Wow.
I haven't had to see an MD for any type of illness, anything like that. In 32 years of practice, I've missed one day for illness. So, and do I spend my money on, I spend my money on, taking my supplements, and I spend my money on eating healthy food. But then again, when I spend my money on eating healthy food, I pay probably, I think we were doing the math the other day, Julie, it was about what, maybe a fifth of what it costs now to eat out.
Oh yeah, probably
You
looks
know,
on that.
and then I'm eating good, healthy food. I'm having I'm having steak with, well, the other night we had salmon with asparagus. Great meal, tasted great. Put it on cauliflower rice, stuff like that. I think the whole meal was probably, what's $5? That's a cost on it.
I don't
If
think
you
it
would,
was that much, but yeah, pretty close.
yeah. And if you'd have bought that same meal at a restaurant, it'd be at least $40 plus the tip.
Yeah. And nutrition is such a big part of preventative, and that's the one that we don't want to let go of. We want to be able to do what we want. We want to be able to indulge ourselves, and that's what ends up preventing us from being preventative in our health, is letting go of the things that we don't need. And it's always the hardest thing. We've talked about this in other episodes, is convincing people to take those steps and make those choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that that's what you see as well, Dr. Stuber, right?
Oh yes, I sure do. And after 30 years of practice, it's an epidemic of people. They're trying to backtrack. They come in and they're just really have problems. Of course, weight is probably the number one, and they just can't move around, and they feel terrible, and they don't sleep. And I think 80% of healthcare, diseases, diagnoses are related to being overweight. So, and it's something that's very simple. First, create good habits. And I work with a lot of children too. So it's really important to parents to teach your children what to eat, how to eat it, cook with them. And I will get resistance there. People will say, oh, well, they just won't eat it. I'm like, well, if they're hungry enough, they'll eat it. If you don't give them the taste of sugar, refined carbs, bad food, junk, they don't ever want it. They don't know the difference. So the sooner you catch something, you make an investment now and you get long-term rewards. It's like if you invest $25 when you're 20 versus investing $25 when you're 80, it just compounds, and it saves people a lot of money. Like, it's much harder to get well than it is to stay well. And I really notice it in adolescents. They're at a critical age. Their body's changing. They're growing a lot. There's skin problems, allergies. They're just kind of coming into their own and figure out who they are. And if we can get them on the right track, they're also very open to education. Like, what we do is we teach people. You have to make the decision for yourself and do what you're supposed to do, and we're here to help and encourage and teach. So if you can catch these things and teach people the right things to do, the sooner the better.
But as we talked last week, we were talking about specifically fibromyalgia, but this still plays, is you can overcome these things. We start hearing that generational issues, or this, that, or the other, that's going to stop us from making that next choice. But we can overcome it. We can take the small steps. It's about starting where you are and making the right choices. We are talking about preventative health this week and talking about what it does. You talked about the big kicker a moment ago about the price. Expense of groceries, of course, is on a lot of people's mind, but also medical expenses are a big part of people's, the word I'm looking for, it is budget. That's the word. So medical expense is a big thing that you can reduce if preventative health is important to you. What are some of the other things, Dr. Tyndall?
Oh yeah, it's when you do these, you're staying healthy. You have a much better quality of life. Here's a nice benefit. Like when we have patients do our eating program, I tell the parents, cook with your kids, because like Julie said, I get parents that don't want to be parents; they want to be their kids' friends. I told my kids, you got two choices: eat or go hungry. But one of the things that I did with my kids is, guess what? I brought up a stool to the stove when I'm cooking. I'm first of all teaching them how to cook. Okay. And the second thing is when they cook it, they want to eat it. And the third thing, which is a great benefit, is guess what the kids want to do? They want to sit at the table with their parents and eat that meal with them. So it's a great benefit. A side benefit is that you're starting to rebuild that connection that we need to rebuild with our families with parents and kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it is better quality of life, better
Yeah.
building of healthy habits, some of the things. And one of the things that I don't know if we've talked about it here yet, I know I've talked about it with Karen some, is when you start eating correctly and making some of these choices that help overall with your mental state, with your health, you start to catch disease earlier. You start to know when something's wrong, so you can then be able to take measures quicker if something isn't going the way it's supposed to, because you can tell when it's not going right.
Yeah. Like what you mentioned a little bit earlier, like a little bit of a generational sickness. Whatever popped in my head when you said that was a researcher, Dr. Pottinger. It's a book he wrote, and he did research back in the 30s. It was called Pottinger's Cats. To sum it up, basically what this guy was doing is he had to do he had to keep cats around for doing experiments on them. He was going to kill them. And so he had a small amount of cats, so he would go down to the local butcher and get fresh meat, fresh food for the cat, real food for that cat's ate. And then what happens as he started expanding his experiment, he's like, oh man, the butcher can't keep up. So he's got to start giving the cats condensed milk and powdered milk and all these other things that they normally wouldn't eat, like processed food. And as he did this, he started observing, wait a minute, my cats that are eating real food are healthy. My cats that are eating this processed stuff are getting sick. So he's like, whoa. So basically the gist of it is he changed his experiment to studying cats and generational nutrition. So he had his control cats where he gave them real food, and they had healthy cats, healthy kittens, healthy cats, healthy kittens. Generation after generation was very healthy. And then he fed the cats, a bad diet and even a worse diet. What happened is the cats got sick. They had sick babies. The big sick babies had sicker babies. The sicker babies had sicker babies. And what happened is that you start to see malformation of the bones, the facial structures, the teeth structures, all these different things as these cats went generationally. And it was driven by nutrition. So he wrote up a big thing. And the other aspect of it was, what was interesting, and this goes back to what we talk about all the time, is when he started feeding the sick cats real food again, guess what happens?
They started getting better.
And so it comes, and that's why I know people probably, I know my patients get tired of hearing it. We always talk about food, always, why? Because it's the hardest thing to change, but it's the most important thing to get control of. Because we can get people to pop pills, to take the supplements, because that's what they've been programmed to do through the medical profession.
Yeah.
So take a pill. So it's easy to do that. The hard part and the most important part is them to get control of their life on what they're eating, how they're doing. And that's again why we put our site together, because it's really good food, really good recipes. You make your food at home. You're making it from single ingredient foods. And as I was explaining to the patient here the other day, she goes, well, I got to be careful. I go, you can't be eating more careful because guess what? They don't put red dye number 6 in carrots or tomatoes, or, they don't put flavor enhancers in onions, or they don't add all these, different chemicals to excite your brain to get you addicted to product in your hamburger or in your steak. So what happens is when you go back to single ingredient food cooking, you then just think about how many toxic chemicals you've just thrown out of your diet. And in America, we're loaded with them, because I just talked to one of my patients. She just got back from England, came in. She said that Wheaties in England taste completely different, because in England, they're not allowed to put all this trash in the food. So she said when they had Wheaties, it actually tasted more like our Raisin Bran, the chip part of it, or the crunchy part of it. And then she compared the labels. She goes, the European labels like this and the American labels like this. You need a PhD in chemistry to read it. And think about all those chemicals that liver has to process out or get stored in your fat tissue. And, that creates a lot of problems.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's banned here or banned in other countries that is used
Mhm.
here like crazy in a lot of packaging, and it's the slow killing of all of us when we go that route. But when we're on that hamster wheel, if you will, it is kind of hard to get off, but you have to get off and you have to take that step. You have to make that choice.
Mhm.
And one of the things we were talking about, pardon me, is the fact that you can reduce your medical expenses. But one of the things that you wanted to share, Dr. Tyndall, is how much we're actually spending on healthcare, and that might be a motivation for some to start making some of these choices.
Yeah. So think about this. 90% of our nation's, we spend $4.1 trillion annually on healthcare expenditures. Okay. That's for chronic disease and mental health. Most of that 90%, most of these chronic diseases and mental health conditions are actually preventable with, you know, proper lifestyle adjustments, refocusing on what's important in your life. And again, this is a big, something that, this is why a lot of times your drug industries and your medical professions and all these other guys they're all, diet plays no role in it. You know why? If you actually change your diet, you would cut out a significant amount of that expenditure, and it doesn't go in their pocket. So they can't have the extra house, the big yacht, the extra vacation home. And, on the, I guess for Julie, I guess it was probably a big thing down there to have your doctors down there having their vacation homes in Florida while they live in these other different states and stuff, or California or whatever. And I tell patients all the time, eat healthy, save money by eating, like I can do in our program. If you don't want to do our program, that's fine. You don't have to, but eat healthy food, real food, instead of putting out those dollars that you're going to spend for your health care, for the expensive drugs and all this stuff in the other doctors' pockets. Why don't you put that money in your own pocket?
Yeah.
And be healthy enough so that you can save those dollars that you're not spending for your doctor's visits, medications, and all these other things. Put it in your savings account so you can go on a trip or do something nice for yourself or nice for your family or pay off your debt or get to where you need to be. All right. So put those, if you want to look at it a financial aspect, put those dollars towards you and your benefit instead of other people's benefits and stuff.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Stuber, what's maybe one of the hurdles or things that you see when you talk to patients that keeps people from getting in this preventative health mode? Because we can talk about it all day, but there's a lot of things that keep us from making these decisions. What do you see the most from people when you're trying to get them to take this route that kind of is the way they are maybe standoffish about making those choices?
I would say the basis of choice that I see is people do not evaluate the risk versus the reward. People are set in their ways, and they have been programmed to think that their physical condition is not changeable, that they cannot do it. And again, it's a lot of it's just programming. It's the medical doctors. We have a country in which the food industry has created addicts, and it has created sickness. And then the pharmaceutical industry comes in and they try to fix it. And it's all about money. We create the addicts, and then we just try to treat the symptoms, and then the symptoms go down, and then the addicts get worse, and one thing breaks and the other thing breaks. And at some point, you got to get off the wheel or you're going to die. I mean, there's certain things, like I tell people, if you're going to eat sugar, it's a death sentence. If you're going to smoke cigarettes, it's a death sentence. So why would you want to shorten your life and not enjoy or even live a very poor quality of life and not be able to enjoy your life? It's like, what is the point?
Well, those things you mentioned is slow suicide. I mean, we're doing this to ourselves for the decisions we're making.
It's not fair, and it's not fair to our loved ones. It's not fair to ourselves, but it's really not fair to others. It's not fair to our children. It's not fair even to society on an economic level. Like, we have people that are so sick, and we're spending all this money on chronic disease for people to just continue to do the same things they've always done. And I don't understand. Like, Dr. Tyndall and I go over the math of how much it costs. I think it was the average family spends $1,500 a month on insurance. Then they spend another $1,500 eating out. I don't know how in our economy. I don't know how people do it. So what I don't also a big problem is people think it's going to take too much work and it's going to cost too much money to make the changes they need to make, and they just don't. They just can't see that they can get health. There's no halfway. Like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm just not going to get that much better. And it just.
Well, from your own story, Dr. Stuber, the two things you just mentioned, oh, I'm not going to get better, or it costs too much money. You've made a lot of these changes yourself in the last year and a half. So give some people some hope today.
Tell them about our new lab work.
I will. When I came here, I couldn't really move. I wasn't that much heavier, but I was a lot bigger. And I had a bad fall. I've had a couple, 2 or 3 of them, but I had a bad fall in 2011 that took me out of practice. And I just really got very unhealthy. And through the change of life, I just got more unhealthy. And when I came here, it's just sort of the lifestyle that presented itself with Dr. Tyndall. I just changed the way I eat, changed what I did. And gosh, I'm down like 8 sizes. I've probably lost 20 pounds maybe. But like I couldn't go up and down stairs. Now I can go up and down 2 at a time. I had shown him like a year ago. I remember I did my lab work and my cholesterol was high. My triglycerides were high. And then 3 months later, what changed was all the bad cholesterol went down. Still a little high. Well, this year I've had 2 sets of blood work. And I think 3 months ago, my triglycerides were up like 154. They were high. And so I really hit it. I really bucked down and I just cut the sugar, no treats. And when I had my cholesterol tested, I think it was last week, it was 74. I mean, something really good. So I can tell you from my experience, it works. And it's not hard. You just got to make the habit. You have to make the decision and create the habit. It's just like anything in life. You do it over and over and over, but it's just one step at a time. And you don't have to make it difficult. We're here to help you. So, some people say, oh, that's just too complicated. I'm like, that's an excuse because Dr. Tyndall and I are available anytime we're awake. If somebody contacts us, we respond. He can attest to that. So, from my own experience, there's no excuses. You just have to make small changes over and over. And it's a spiral upward. Just like you can spiral downward, like seems like one thing happens and another thing happens and et cetera, et cetera. Well, what happens is when you start feeling a little bit better, you start being more active. You start smiling more. You start wanting to do more with your loved ones. And what happens if you continue that, you just continue to get better. Like, it's been a little over a year, and I'm still getting better. I don't know where I'm going to be a year from now. I'm going to be floating on air. I don't know. I just...
3 steps at a time. Yeah.
I mean, that I'm going to live longer than he is, and he's planning on living to be like 103, so I might only be 4 inches tall, but I'll get there. But,
That's a specific number, 103. I'm interested in that story. Dr. Tyndall, as you have seen, you both talk from years of experience in practice. What is it to you that really starts? It's usually something in their life with someone they know, like Dr. Stuber was just talking about. Sometimes it's other people that you do it for. So when you're trying to find that reason to make these choices, and again, it's starting where you are. A lot of times, if you look at Dr. Tyndall or even the journey for Dr. Stuber that's only been a year, and you think, well, I don't know if I can do that. What's kind of the things that you've seen in practice that kind of get people to say, oh, I can do this? What's the common theme for people that actually finally make the decision to start making good choices?
Believe it or not, it's just making the decision to be healthy. A lot of people, we hear every excuse in the world. And I tell patients, when you make the transition to being healthier, it takes time because you have to develop new habits. Like with us, actually my daughter did it, because we were like, we need to organize the refrigerator. So actually my daughter, she's 18, went out and bought like vacuum, kind of like a vacuum seal, like top.
Mm-hmm.
So we put all of we cut up our onions, our carrots, our vegetables and all that stuff. And it's nicely packed in the refrigerator. And we got all of our stuff that we want to kind of eat. We like, here's what we're going to eat. So we get those foods. For us, making a meal 5-10 minutes. I mean, it's because it's just such a habit to come home. Today, when I get done here, I have to drive out about 45 minutes to go do some PEMF, work on a Amish horse and work for some Amish. And then I'm going to get home tonight late. So I'm going to have a salad. It'll take me, 5 minutes to make it. And it's going to be a really good salad. It'll have carrots and onions and tomatoes and a whole bunch of really good stuff in it. And so it's what it is, just getting the habit of eating healthy. And that's what we're trying to teach people with our program and how we're trying to help patients is, we want you to be healthy for the rest of your life. We want you to maximize your thing. I tell people all the time, my goal is to be 106, but 103 is good.
Oh, sorry. We're at now 107.
But,
my
goal
number, man.
Yeah. So my goal is to be, I just use 106. So, my goal is to be 106. And I tell people, I don't want the last words out of my mouth to be, hey guys, hold my beer, watch this. I want to be doing something really stupid when I die. I don't want to spend, and part of it was ingrained in me as a kid, because when we used to, in church, we'd have a choir and we'd have to go to the nursing homes and sing at Christmas and Easter and stuff like that. And I can still, to this day, remember the smell. The smell of cleaning stuff in poop, in urine. I remember sitting up singing in the choir to the people, and I'm thinking to myself, why are we here singing? Because these people most of them have no clue that we're even here. And it stuck with me. And I thought to myself, especially as I got older, because it came back to me, especially after my car crash and I gained my weight, I'm like, man, I'm heading that direction. I don't want to be there. So what do I have to do to now, so that in the future that I can have the life that I want to live? Because, when you're practicing, you're making money and you're working hard, you're trying to build that nest egg up. You're trying to build these things up. And we get patients all the time. I had one lady a while back, she's just, man, I've worked all my life to get where I'm at. And now I'm finally got the money that I need and the time that I need to travel and do the things I want. But she forgot to invest in her health. She can't physically go out there and do that stuff. So she worked all her life to get to a point that and then guess what? She can't do it because she forgot to take care of her health.
And that's why we're talking about this today. We're talking about, what we started off with. An ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. And we want you to make the right choices. We want you to start where you are. Don't compare your health journey with someone else's. That's always the thing that really gets in the way, at least from the little bit that I've seen and talked to people. When you start thinking about, Dr. Stuber has done this for a year and this is where she is. I don't think I can take those steps. Or Dr. Tyndall, it's been X amount of years since this accident. This is how healthy he is. But it's because he took those steps and made those decisions then. And it starts with a single choice. It starts with a single step. And that's really the basis of what we get to talk about on this podcast is you can start where you are, but you have to start there. You have to start somewhere and start making those choices. And a good place to start is new-lifeweightloss.com. All of this that they talk about with the meals and the program that they've started to really help you and make it all easy for you is right there at new-lifeweightloss.com. That is a place where you can get your nutritional information and shopping lists on how to make these meals and all of that good stuff. It's all right there at the website. And make sure you check that out as well. new-lifeweightloss.com, and that'll help you get started. We also, of course, want you to subscribe and download on the podcast, whatever platform that you use for Pursuit of New Life. And then we also, of course, want you to find us on YouTube. Then you can find the cool graphics and see us as we're talking with our hands and everything else that we do here on the podcast on YouTube. That's at New Life Naturopathic. And so we're glad to have shared this information with you. And I look forward to sharing some more with you. This one was on preventative health. Hey, come back next week and see what else we get to talk about on Pursuit of New Life.
Thank you much, Quincy.
Thanks, Quincy.